Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by 3 Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for coffee and conversation. Leslie Clark joins us today to discuss part 1 of our series, What the New Older Adult Wants, Myth-Busting Senior Living. Leslie is the sales director of Masterpiece and has more than 20 years of experience in the hospitality and senior living industries.
Well, welcome everybody. Danielle, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. We have one of my favorite people on the show again.
Yes. We love to, we work with such a talented team and we just can't help ourselves that periodically we want to invite one. We've had others on, but today it's Leslie Clark. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Leslie is our director of sales for Masterpiece. And so, and as you heard in the intro, she has quite a bit of experience in this whole area of senior living. And as you know, Masterpiece deals with senior living. We partner with senior living communities, among other partners. And of course, they've been in a bit of a upheaval with COVID. It significantly changed their dynamics and things. And some residents get isolated because the usual way they interacted with them was interrupted and disrupted, as with all of us. And so I think there are some people saying, should I move into senior living? Well, the data says they are moving into senior living, but we wanted to talk today about the senior living environment, but more importantly, what people want, particularly what I like to call the new older adult wants. And Leslie, you're in a great position because you've seen, well, if you consider, say, every 3 to 5 years, a generation, 4 generations of dealing with people moving into senior living. So I think you're perfect. So again, welcome. I like to make people aware of the fact that senior living as we know it today is complex. It's not just skilled nursing, and it has a lot to do with independent living and assisted living, as well as skilled and memory. And the communities are structured in different ways. And so that it's like people. It's not you can't talk about it as a homogenized group, first of all, in the senior living. But I like to talk about its roots, because that is very important, I think, when we address the things we're going to address today. And the roots were the almshouses, the poorhouses of the late 19th century, when, there were no such thing as Social Security, Medicare, and most women were in the home. And so if a husband died, or most people didn't get divorced, but if for some reason the woman was alone, she was destitute. It was very difficult for her to make a living. And so many of the faith-based groups formed almshouses, and they were not great places. I'll bet you, I know my grandmother used to say, you keep that up, you're going to end up in a poorhouse. They were not nice places to be. And that was the roots of what is today senior living. So it came out of a sense of compassion, of duty, of caring. And we're going to see how that has significantly evolved today. So, I mean, the Depression era adults and were people, are the greatest generation. My parents, they went through some significant things, but one thing, they were not very demanding, like my father, he was not ostentatious. My mother either, not ostentatious. And most of all the people in their circle were not. My father didn't talk about the war, beat his breast or anything like that. And, we just went along and did our thing, and they didn't ask for much. They were happy with what they had. It was more than they had ever experienced in their lives. So again, that was a that was a different group of people. And that's basically who's in senior living now, but it's transitioning. So again, I've set the stage, talked a lot. My first question. So Leslie, in your experience working in senior living and hospitality industry, what stands out? And I guess kind of related to what I just said, how the older adult, the user, so to speak, is evolving.
Well, I think my biggest I guess takeaway really is the older adults could be a variety of ages. When I was at a senior living community, there were, a few people in their 60s, but most of them were in their 70s and 80s, certainly different backgrounds. I remember one gentleman who'd been in one of the wars, I can't remember, and he lost both his legs, and he could zip around on his wheelchair like you can't believe. He was a feisty guy, he was awesome. Yeah, to your point, a lot of people who were in wars didn't talk about it, but think about their perception of the world. And I think the biggest thing to remember is everyone has different experiences. So until you really talk to them and understand their background, I think assumptions can never be made. You have to really dig in and understand a little bit more about them.
Yeah, we don't want to homogenize them, which I just said about communities. We don't want to homogenize people. And wow, is that ever get done today? I do it. Just about everybody does it. And with any group, probably you want to homogenize. I talk about these kids today, and and millennials and whatever. And it's not a wise thing it's not a healthy thing to do. And it certainly doesn't help matters. And so again, I get, what a good point, each one is different. The ages are different. That's a beginning, and their experiences have been different. That's spot on.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. So, I feel like a lot of sales and marketing people assume that the senior living market is a one size fits all, when that demographic, as you've kind of mentioned, can span now 4 or more decades. So what do you observe, when Roger began this, he was saying how they were grateful for everything, for care. But now I feel like that's changing. The expectations are changing. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I think so. And I think it depends on really which segment. If somebody's looking at active living, independent living, certainly their mindset and their level of care or needs may be very minimum. They may not really need anything other than the camaraderie and social connection that a community like that might provide. But I think in assisted living, they may have their health may be failing, or they may have diabetes and need additional assistance. So I think one really needs to dig in and understand where they are and why they're looking at senior living. And I think with that, most salespeople are qualifying that really well. And sometimes the nurse may come into the conversation as well to determine exactly what they need and how a community can provide and meet those needs.
I've been in the business, not in your capacity, but we partnering with communities for over 20 years now. And I have seen a dramatic shift where I remember that salespeople were talking about features versus benefits, countertops and showers, and you don't have to do landscaping, and how many square feet. And of course, those are important things, and care when you needed it. And those are important things. But, with the research that we deal with on aging and how important lifestyle is, and that becoming more widespread and more well-known, I believe that at least I have seen, and I give lots of talks to people who are considering senior living. So I know they give me feedback, and I know what they want, what they're hearing. Of course, I know what I'm telling them also, is that so much is possible. That I think there's an element of assumption of care. They assume the care is there. They assume the place is nice. And what I want you to tell me, they say, to differentiate is that, how am I going to be the best I can be here? Am I going to be able to live a lifestyle that is better in this community than I can have at home? Because I want to age in the very best way. I want to I want to, what we say in public health, compress my morbidity, limit the time, compress the time that you're sick and impaired, and hopefully stay at high levels of function for longer and longer periods of time. They probably don't say it like that, but they're saying, yeah, they want to have fun. They want to, but I think, things like social connection, particularly after COVID, are so important. And if they're not seeing it at their house, I think that could be driving people. So in any case, those are observations I have, but you've seen a lot about wellness programs and food offerings and features, which I know that probably for most of your career, you started talking about the benefits, which is exactly what I was talking about, versus features. You want to just talk a little bit about that, benefits versus features, and the people you've seen?
Many of in my observation of the senior living communities and active living, independent living, there are so many choices. I found some potential residents really wanted it to be super nice. They were all about the aesthetics. Some people don't really care about the aesthetics. They just want to know, what's the sense of community like? What will my life be like if I move here? And I think that's the most important thing to focus on. And I think also people need to remember everybody comes from a different economic situation. I encountered some people who were selling their 6,000 square foot homes and they wanted the best of the best. And then some people were really just coming from a very simplistic lifestyle. So first and foremost, I think one needs to be aware and qualify that and make sure they're moving into a community that really fits their lifestyle. Secondly, I think the sense of camaraderie and that social connection is huge, especially after COVID, because so many of us of all ages were isolated. Some people still are. And so I think reminding people that that is such an important part of our development at every stage of life, and showing them how they can meet new people, be it if they have formal activities, maybe they have neighbors. I think it's just really asking questions and finding out why they're thinking about making a change. Sometimes there's family pressure and someone within the family may be pushing an older adult to make that change. So you have to find out really what's going on.
So it's funny, but today it's almost like those hotel or luxury qualities are a given. Like every time you turn on the TV, they'll say, the luxury you deserve, the life you deserve. And one of the things I like about Roger's message on supported autonomy is there are communities that it's not about what we're going to take care of you. It's what are you bringing into the community? What do you want to get out of the experience? So can you talk a little bit about how the sales messaging needs to change, that it's more than just the luxury, it's about quality of life and lifestyle as far as continuing to grow?
Absolutely. I think it's so important. And I think a salesperson needs to really find out what did that person do for a career? What are their hobbies? What are their interests? I went to go visit a friend who works for an independent living community, and a gentleman was playing the piano in the lobby. And it turns out that, I'm not sure all the details, but his doctor recommended he start playing the piano again. And so all the residents rallied and encouraged him to start playing. And apparently when he was young, he was really good and he'd given it up. So then he went back and he started to get those skills back. And it was awesome just to even walk into the building and hear the piano. So I think little things like that make such a difference, because you could say, hey, we have this awesome grand piano here. You can play at any time. Or would you like to teach another resident how to play? There's so many things. And I think that's the critical piece, is just finding out those little details, because you want to have them feel like you're embracing them, that those little things that they may have dismissed as not important could be huge.
Yeah, we have a number of communities. When somebody comes in, they ask those questions. What are you interested in? And if it's something they don't have at the community, they're like, would you like to teach it? Would you like to run this? And they put them in charge and they love it. So that's that piano playing. That's a great example.
Yeah, and even so, you already mentioned it. There are some very progressive communities we work with that are asking. So we know you had a life and a career and you have skills. So, can you bring what skills can you bring into the community that will benefit the entire community? Mary Oliver said, tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. And when you're young, you don't even think about it. All these things come upon you, your career, your family, your extended family, when you become a sandwich generation and you got two generations to be concerned about. And so all these things just occur, but then all of a sudden, something happens and all of those go away. And some people, unfortunately, say, well, I don't have purpose anymore. I don't need purpose. I did everything. Well, the research is very clear. That doesn't happen. If we don't have purpose and meaning, we wither. And so I think some go and not realizing that this is an opportunity for them to find new purpose, be with a group that stimulates that. And I think that can be shut down by many things. Probably a traditional one that talks about the features versus the benefits, or the language that we use. We can use language that sort of discourages any sort of new view of yourself or of your generation or of the possibilities that you have. Terms I don't even want to say here. We already said the F word.
the other F word. So
Yeah.
what you're saying, Roger, is they get to choose their wildness.
Yeah, there you go.
It was chosen before them, but choose your wildness.
But you mentioned it. Supported autonomy is what we like to work with our partners on, so that someone who goes there to any community chooses it so that they can be the best that they can be. May I say they can live long, die short? Can I say that?
It's your show, Roger. You say whatever you want.
But and so to be the best that they can be and to grow. And they don't want to be homogenized and have things thrown at them and they can go or they can't go. They want to be able to make their way through a lot of possibilities that the community brings. And be the best that they can be, but they understand that they can use some support. So there's no question in that, but I know you have a question, Danielle.
I do. I think we have time for one more before we take a break. But Leslie, I've heard you talk about the sales reps, and they view a prospect moving into the community as like transactional, whereas these people are picking something for the rest of their lives. It's a huge decision. And then once they're there, it's like the salesperson washes their hands, walks away, and there's no kind of passing of the baton. So talk a little bit, if you could, about how the structure and just how we approach the sales process needs to change.
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to remember that it's someone's life. It's not just a hotel stay where you're going on vacation for a week. This is a big move. And a lot of people are moving, or selling their home from 30 years, or they've had all their lifelong memories are tied to a home. So that's a seriously emotional process in itself. And I think a lot of salespeople some of them get very pushy. And I don't agree with that strategy because it takes time and thought. Especially if you're considering active living or independent living, you typically have a lot more time to think about it. In an assisted living, sometimes people have things that happen. Somebody might break a hip and fall down and they need immediate assistance. And in that case, it's a different conversation. However, overall, I just think the sales teams and the leadership team needs to remember that it is somebody's life. And it needs to, the conversations need to support them and encourage them that, hey, we're here for you. And as far as once somebody moves in, it's really important, in my opinion, for the salespeople to stay connected, check in with the resident, see how things are going.
Masterpiece provides communities with personalized content that keeps residents engaged and focused on their unique pathway to healthy longevity, no matter the circumstance or external influence. Powered by Masterpiece provides communities with the data and research needed to drive both the resident and community forward. Learn more at mymasterpieceliving.com.
I have moved 23 times in my life. Most of it was in the military or was in medical school. And that was within a culture. And so those moves were made a lot better by the fact that the culture was one of moving. Well, the culture understood someone moving in, and they had they knew what it involved, and they had resources for children, for family, to introduce you to the job, make sure that you got all the training that you needed. And, and sometimes, for me, the job, was quite substantial and dangerous. And so if I wasn't brought into that community with the whole idea that to be oriented to it and to realize that I was an essential part of that, even though I was new. That made it a whole lot easier. If that hadn't happened, I can't imagine. And that's basically what's going on. This is a whole new experience for an older adult. And it's moving away from that sacred home where all the wonderful things happen, but not much is happening now. And it's a very, very difficult decision. I think everyone should at some point try to put them. This is a good tact for anyone to have empathy and compassion. Put yourself in someone's shoes who's looking at that. And so I think the reason they do it has to be more than, although it has been pretty much hospitality and not having to do the yard work. But I think, again, today, I think it's much more than that. I think it's about realizing, especially after COVID, that isolation is a killer. And that as I'm getting older in this house, I'm getting more and more isolated. And if a spouse ever dies, that's just disastrous as far as isolation and decline. And being with people, that's when you laugh, when you grow, and find purpose and meaning. And so I don't know. There it is. It's another one where I don't have a question for you, Leslie, but you provoked me. You're asking me questions in a way. So thank you for that.
Well, I think too, one thing for everyone to remember is none of us, we don't know what is going on in someone's mind. And I know for me, I don't feel like I'm my age. I feel like I'm still in my 40s. But then I have to remind myself I'm not. And so we don't know what a potential resident is thinking. And they may be resisting the fact that they're getting older and need to be encouraged that, actually getting older is a gift because it beats the alternative, right? If you get to grow older, that's a gift, truly. And I was talking to some friends and they're like, oh, we're getting old. I'm like, no, we're not. We're just getting wiser. So let's make it fun and let's just make it positive, because truly, to your point, Roger, many times in your book, you referenced how important it is to stay active and stay strong, take care of yourself, and make the most of life. Learn, if you can, learn new things. And I think the resident engagement is huge. A lot of senior living communities, from what I've read, are really focused on the mid-market, as a lot of people can't afford the really, really expensive, fancy ones. And is it really any different than another one? Probably not. It just looks a little different, right? I mean, so the mid-market is important, and then we need more residents to get involved.
Are beginning to understand that the playing field has changed, because those who come to us, Masterpiece, are looking for the ability to have new content, new education, new training for their staff, to be able to provide someone the ability to take a look at their lifestyle, since that's very important, and track it as they're in there. But there are also a number of companies out there that are using technology to keep people connected inside communities, and and multiple other resources that allow someone to take a virtual trip, and so they're augmenting what they used to do totally in-house because they realize the appetite is huge, and basically they have to feed this new evolved beast because they want more. And of course, senior living is totally dedicated to doing the best they can for residents, and now that includes growing as well as keeping them safe and secure and healthy. So are there any resources out there that you could recommend for someone who might be considering senior living?
Well, I think overall, community and the leadership team needs to remember there are so many resources to support residents, your associates, your community. As we now know with COVID, a lot of older adults adapted to technology really well. Not everyone has to have a smartphone. They can log in through their TV or whatever connections you use within your community. I think to know what your social options are huge, yet some people like to drive their own, kind of follow their own path. They may not want the community to lead everything they're doing. They might want to find resources on their own. One thing I find super helpful, and I think a lot of communities are looking for additional resources, be it content that they can share with their team, content with their residents. And when I say content, that might be ways to incentivize residents to get stronger and to get moving a little bit more. Start a walking club, get out and do new things, started a gardening club, whatever it may be. I think anything new and or something that they did in the past is so important to bring to the table. Because I think some older adults assume they're going to be doing cutting and pasting and kindergarten activities, and that's not what a lot of older adults want. They want to be able to kind of really do what they want to do. And we need to remember that. And so how are you going to accommodate that? And what can a community do to brainstorm to meet the expectations and really all the interests of that the residents have?
Yeah, and the resources have to be immense. I think significantly much more. And we in Masterpiece, we're doing what we think older adults want, and I'm one of them pretty much. So, and my brother is, and so plus we do a lot of people would call it market research, but we just do research. We read the research about what's required to age in a better way, healthy longevity. And that's what we try to bring to the table. So it's this journey of supported autonomy, lots of content, lots of pathways that you can take, but we guide you, and the community guides you, and we help the community to track that. And so again, that's what I would want. And I don't think I'm alone. So Leslie, just like we thought, there you go. 20 years of plus of experience, gems, little pearls that you threw out today. We thank you for that. Someone who's maybe struggling with whether they should do this or not, or someone in a community thinking, how do we appeal to more people? I hope they find this of value, because I think you brought us some value. Thank you for coming. I'm so happy that you're on the team, and because you're going to hear some more of our teammates, because they are quite a group, and we'll have more of it. So thank you, everybody, for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
We'll make sure to have Leslie's email in the description of this podcast. She welcomes questions, so don't hesitate to reach out. You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.